Recently, I've been doing my monthly rewatch of the Cuphead Show, and I finally want to talk about it. This is a video idea that's been brewing in my head for a while, and I think it's about time I finally make it. Now, without stalling, because I know this is going to be a long-ass video, let's go. Now, quick little side note, it's completely okay if you disagree with my opinions, just don't be rude about it. Please and thank you. And also, don't be rude to other people who don't share the same opinion as you. I thought I would get that out there in case someone somehow doesn't know that. Also, spoilers for the Cuphead Show, Dice on Ice, Evil and Vile Live, and the Art of the Cuphead Show book. Basically, if it's some sort of kind of official content about the show, then it's gonna be spoilered. Sorry. The Cuphead Show is an animated Netflix series released on February 22nd, 2022. It's a cartoon adaptation of the video game Cuphead and follows a plot set before the game does. As expected, it follows Cuphead and his brother Mugman and their adventures throughout the Inkwell Isles. Oh my god, I sound like I sound like some middle-aged game journalist describing the show. Alright, so first, the characters. Cuphead is honestly just such a lovable main character. He's adventurous, he's funny, he's impulsive. Every time he's on screen, and especially when episodes are based on him, it's always just so much fun to watch. Mugman is an even better Guys, I'm reading my script right now, I cannot say that word. The other protagonist. Mugman, he's anxious, he's a dork, he has a bit of an ego. He's literally perfect in every way, and I don't take criticism. And then there's Miss Chalice. And I'm gonna make this clear. If there is someone in the audience who doesn't like Miss Chalice, I want you to get off of YouTube, go look at yourself in the mirror, and ponder where your life went wrong. Miss Chalice is my second favorite character in the series, and I'm literally so sad that she didn't appear in more episodes. She's charming, she's witty, she learns how to be kind and be there for her friends. She probably has the best character arc in the entire series. Even her introduction episode, In Charm's Way, is one of the best episodes the series has to offer. I'm so glad that she got so much screen time, even if it wasn't as much as I would have liked. As for the Devil, he's such a funny character. I love how in the first two seasons he's a somewhat intimidating force, like especially during the Devil's Pitchfork, and then after the Devil's Revenge, he's just like a minor inconvenience until the series finale. I don't care if it isn't accurate or whatever, it's funny as hell, and I love this stupid theater kid, Catman. King Dice is my favorite of the villains though. He's just like his game counterpart, and even though he didn't appear in a ton of episodes, literally all of his appearances were perfect. Wayne Brady was an amazing voice actor for him, and even though I don't think my thirst for King Dice content will really ever go away, the scripts that Deek posts on Twitter are doing wonders for me. Also, I apologize in advance if I say names wrong. I am very bad at reading, and it's like midnight as I'm recording this. So that's all the main characters of the show, and as much as I'd love to talk about Henchman or Elder Kettle for like 45 minutes, I should probably move on. So now I'm gonna go season by season and talk about the highlights of each episode. Certain ones will get more attention than others for various reasons, including my own criticisms with certain story beats. This is also when I start to do something new and I don't really have a script. I'm just gonna go off bullet points I have written down because I think it's just the best way to go about this. The first episode, Carnival, is such an amazing introduction to the show. Basically, Cuphead and Mugman have to paint a fence, they don't wanna, and Cuphead breaks the fence. They go to buy more paint, they find a carnival, Cuphead shows off at one of the games, the devil appears, Cuphead loses his soul, and Mugman outsmarts the devil. It sets up the main conflict of the series so well, and it mimics the game surprisingly well despite being a much more family-friendly approach to the story. One of my favorite aspects of this episode is that even within the first couple of minutes, you can tell so much about these characters' personalities. Like, just take the opening scene for example. You see Elder Kettle and you see him making pancakes and you just kind of assume, oh, okay, so he's a caretaker. And then you see Cuphead and Mugman. Cuphead is feet propped up on the table, reading a comic book, and shows off by catching all the pancakes on his plate. It sets up his personality well. He's cocky and doesn't really think ahead at all. And then you have Mugman, who sees his brother doing that and then tries to mimic him, and then fails because he's a loser. And then you see Cuphead split his pancakes in half and slide one half over to Mugman, showing that these two really do care about each other, even though Cuphead steals all the syrup and is himself, you can still tell that they have a really good bond, and just there's so much life and personality packed into such a short scene. Episode 2, Baby Bottle, establishes a little bit more of Cuphead and Mugman's relationship. Basically, they're left home alone and a basket shows up that has a baby in it. Mugman starts caring for the baby, Cuphead doesn't like it because the baby's mean to him, and Mugman doesn't believe him. Eventually, Mugman does realize that the baby is the spawn of Satan, and they kind of try to escape from it, even though it doesn't work. Elder Kettle shows up, he realizes the baby's evil, they pawn the baby off on some poor soul, and the episode's over. Honestly, even though the episode's a little bit weaker than Carnival, it's still a really funny episode with a lot of nice gags. The baby bottle is kind of not intimidating per se, but it's a really funny villain and kind of a trope that I'll never get sick of. Episode 3, Ribby and Croaks, is the first time that a game boss appears in the show. The episode starts out with Cuphead and Mugman being angry at each other because one ate the other's ice cream. They're sent off with $5 and some pocket lint, and they end up at the Fly Trap, which is this, party boat thing? I'm not entirely sure. In the game it was a nightclub, but that had to be changed for the child-friendly show, so I'm just gonna assume it's some type of party boat. And the party boat is owned by Ribby and Croaks, two large boxing frogs. They steal Cuphead and Mugman's money and don't let them on, but the two sneak onto the boat anyways. They get chased around by Ribby and Croaks because they didn't pay, and they end up forgiving each other for the whole ice cream thing. Ribby and Croaks realize that, hey, maybe forgiving your family isn't such a bad thing after all. Anyways, the boat dies, Cuphead and Mugman get the ice cream they wanted, and the episode ends. I think now would be a good time to introduce the fact that Cuphead and Mugman have one of the most accurate sibling representations in, all of fiction. Because yes, siblings would accuse each other of sleep-eating ice cream. Yes, they would start fighting each other just because they were told you're not allowed to fight. That is, in fact, how brothers act. I would know because I am the younger brother. I've always been the youngest. I have an older brother who is probably watching this right now. Whoopsies. Anyways, yes, siblings really do act like this. Episode 4, Handle with Care, is the first Mugman-centered episode of many, and honestly, I love these episodes because they flesh out Mugman more as a character. The episode starts with Mugman and Cuphead fighting, Mugman's handle breaks off, and they have to find a way to glue the handle back on. Except it takes them a minute to remember what glue is. I love these two goopers. After some cartoon shenanigans happen, Mugman is eventually comforted by Elder Kettle, who tells him that his baby handle must have fallen off and that his man handle is gonna grow in. Cuphead, being himself, impulsively breaks his handle, and by the end, their handles are glued back on, and yay. Honestly, I really love this episode. According to the Art of the Cuphead Show book, which is a big point of reference for a lot of the things I'm talking about, a handle breaking is such a Mugman-specific issue. If it happened to Cuphead, which it literally happened in the episode, he wouldn't care. He's Cuphead. But for Mugman, who's a lot more sensitive and anxious, his handle breaking would feel like an entire part of his identity being gone. Which it is, for a good portion of the episode. It's an amazing episode with good visual gags, and I love Cuphead being just a supportive brother. We love it. Episode 5, Roll the Dice, is the funniest episode in the entire show, and I do not take criticism. Not only is it a Cuphead-centered episode, but King Dice is introduced, so that automatically puts it at a number 1 spot, because he is number 1. The episode starts with Cuphead and Mugman losing a tire they were playing with, and they have to chase it down. I'm not lying. Rewatch the episode. That's how the story starts. And they end up making it to the place where a radio show called Roll the Dice is being performed live. Obviously, Roll the Dice, it's King Dice, that's his show. He runs the show. The show is set up to be a rigged game show where the winners will lose their souls and the soul is sent to the devil. Because the devil is still here, King Dice works for the devil. I don't know why I felt the need to point that out, but yeah. Cuphead and Mugman make it in, Cuphead is called up on stage to participate in the show, and it's just so much fun. Cuphead is being himself the whole time, just goofy answers, he keeps stealing the microphone, it's funny, it's amazing. Cuphead is just at his absolute best in this episode, and by the end, you can't help but just love him so much. He's such a dork. This episode is just all kinds of fun, and honestly, if Karn Evil wasn't the introduction to the series, I think Roll the Dice would be another amazing introduction. Just tweak some of the things about Cuphead owing his soul to the devil. It could very well be that, oh, he was on the game show and he bet and he lost and the devil was after him. Anyways, point being, if this was the first episode of the show, I would not be complaining. I love Cuphead's personality throughout the entire episode. He's so funny and has some of the most iconic lines in the entire series. It's such, even if you don't like the rest of the Cuphead show, I recommend giving Roll the Dice a watch. It's a very good one. Also, the fact that the writers had a very clever way of writing Mugman out of the episode. Mugman's one of those characters where if he's involved in the conflict, it can probably be resolved within like 5 minutes. And so writing him out by giving him stage fright, which, you know, makes a lot of sense with his character being very anxious and shy, it's good to get him out of the episode, so not only Cuphead has a chance to shine, but also the conflict doesn't immediately get resolved because Mugman is he's not the smartest, but he's kind of surrounded by not smart people, which makes him the smartest by default. Episode 6, Ghosts Ain't Real, is probably the episode I have the least to say about. Cuphead and Mugman get out of a movie, and they decide to take a shortcut through an old graveyard home. Obviously, they get trapped in the graveyard, and they have to survive. They split up for a little bit, and Mugman is comforted by Cuphead saying, "Ghosts ain't real." You know, the title of the episode. Turns out, ghosts are in fact real, and they chase Cuphead and Mugman. They think they killed them. Cuphead and Mugman get home, Elder Kettle thinks they're zombies, and that's the end of the episode. Now, it's pretty weak in the story department, but honestly, the visuals is enough to make up for it. I love the ghosts, I love all the references to old animation. The 3D model of the graveyard is really cool, and the behind the scenes of it in the Art of the Cuphead Show book is even cooler, and the ending is pretty funny with the zombies being a callback to the movie they were watching at the beginning of the episode. So while definitely being the weakest compared to all the other episodes in this season, it's definitely not bad at all. Episode 7, Root Pact, is another one where a boss from the game is introduced, and it makes sense for the Isle 1 bosses from the games to be introduced in Season 1. They're the first guys you're gonna encounter, so it makes sense that they're gonna be the first ones you see in the show. The episode starts with Elder Kettle taking care of a vegetable garden and breaking his back, and he dies. I'm just kidding, he doesn't die, but he is out of commission for a while. He's worried about his vegetable garden, and Cuphead and Mugman promise to take care of it. And at first, they use it as a lie to get out of chores and go run off on their own, but Mugman pulls Cuphead back, and he starts feeling guilty. And there's hints as to their backstory and why they're being taken care of by, assuming some sort of grandfather rather than their actual parents, where Mugman mentions that they should take care of Elder Kettle's babies because Elder Kettle took care of them when they were babies. Cuphead feels guilty and agrees to go back and take care of the stupid vegetables. I'm kidding. They sit around for a while feeling bored, and that's when the Root Pack shows up. At first, they just invade their shed and start stealing, like, soil and garbage. And then they start lying and manipulating cups, being like, "Oh, we're orphans, we have nowhere to go, we're vegetables, we could take care of that garden for you." And Cuphead and Mugman are just like, "Okay," and they go off and do their original plans. The Root Pack was obviously lying and taking advantage of them, and they host some type of vegetable party. I don't really know how to describe it, but I love it. Cuphead and Mugman get back, they're reasonably upset, and they realize that the party is actually destroying Elder Kettle's vegetable garden. They try scaring off the vegetables, it doesn't work, and then they encounter Ollie Bulb, which is the onion guy. They talk to Ollie, and he starts crying because they manipulate him. All the other vegetables start crying and leave. The garden is saved, kind of. The Root Pack gets mad and decides to soak up all of the water and the soil, and Elder Kettle's just like, "Oh, my vegetables are all grown, time to kill them." And then the Root Pack runs off. I think this is honestly one of the most underrated of all of the episodes involving the bosses. Like, yeah, obviously it's no High Seas Adventure, which is an episode we're gonna get to later, but it's still a really good one. Episode 8, Sweater Off Dead, starts out as a dream segment, where it's a recreation of the first scene of the first episode. Except, when Mugman loses his pancakes, one of them sticks to the walls, and a mouth thing eats him. I don't know how to describe it. Basically, it's a dream. It doesn't make sense. And it kind of shows how Cuphead does genuinely have fears and anxieties. He just doesn't show them much because of his I'm not too worried about it sort of mindset. Mugman is not buying this and takes him to see Quadratus. This is the first time in the series that Quadratus is introduced. They get invisible yarn to make an invisible sweater to keep Cuphead's soul away from the devil, because that's what he was worried about. I forgot to mention that. Except the sweater has to be made by Mugman because brotherly love or something. I don't know how to describe it. I just woke up. I'm too tired for this. Unsurprisingly, the devil shows up, tries to take Cuphead's soul. It doesn't work, and the devil gets angry, and they go home, and the episode ends. Even though it's a pretty simple episode and just kind of a segue into the next one, it's still really decent. It introduces a character who's going to be very important later on, and I love all of the devil transformations in the end. It's just, the animation's really nice in this one. Episode 9, Sweaterluck Next Time, picks up where the last episode left off. The devil is still upset that all of his attempts to get Cuphead's soul hasn't worked, and so he goes to their house to confront them about it. I don't know why he thought that'd be a good idea, but anyways, Cuphead and Mugman trick him into repainting the fence because the devil destroyed their fence previously, and they sneak off to go to an amusement park ride called the Obliterator. The devil finishes the fence, gets angry that they lied to him, and goes to the carnival to get them. Turns out, Cuphead took the sweater off, and Mugman is of course freaking out, but the devil doesn't know yet that the sweater isn't there. Mugman goes home, the devil and Cuphead have a really funny scene together, and then the devil realizes, oh crap, he's not wearing the sweater. But before Cuphead's soul can be taken by him, even though it's literally taken out of his body, Mugman puts the sweater on the devil, which causes him to be paralyzed in pain. I don't know how to describe it. And the episode ends with Mugman being like, oh man, we don't have the sweater anymore. And Cuphead's like, well, I have you. That's what matters. Honestly, it's a really nice, not an ending to the arc of Cuphead's soul, but it's still a really nice continuation of that arc. It's nice to see more of Cuphead and Mugman's relationship. The devil is really funny the entire episode. I literally adore the scene with him and Cuphead waiting in line for the ride. And also, it's another clever way to get the devil out of the story for a while, so other plot points can happen without him being there. Episode 10, Dangerous Mugman. It's another Mugman episode. Let's go. I love these things. It starts out in Pork Rind's shop. Cuphead and Mugman are being their kind of usual annoying selves, but I love them. And Pork Rind sends them off to Mount Eruptus. Well, there's a miscommunication thing. But anyways, they go to Mount Eruptus. Mugman is obviously nervous, and Cuphead gives him these little goggles that will make him feel more confident. Clearly the goggles always work, and they go to this very dangerous jungle-like setting, and they get to Mount Eruptus, and then Mugman realizes that he doesn't have the goggles anymore. Once they're no longer hanging off the side of a damn cliff, Mugman realizes that he didn't need the goggles, and that he did all those brave things on his own. They steal an egg, get back to Pork Rind, and Pork Rind reveals, no, I didn't want you to go to the actual Mount Eruptus, I wanted you to get my dry cleaning. It's a funny episode, you see Grim Matchstick in the end, which is a really nice treat, and the episode ends. Episode 11, Dirt Nap, is an Elder Kettle themed episode, which is a really cool idea. Basically, Elder Kettle goes to get Cuphead and Mugman for breakfast, and he mishears Cuphead and Mugman and assumes that they're going to kill him. I love this episode so much. Elder Kettle does various things to try to prove that he's not old and he's doing just fine, and by the end, Cuphead and Mugman reveal, no, we weren't going to kill you, we love you, you're our Elder Kettle. It's a really nice episode, even if it is short, and I love this little family. Now, the moment I've been waiting for, episode 12, In Charm's Way. This is when Miss Chalice is introduced, and I literally have so much to say about this episode. I love it so much. In the episode, Cuphead and Mugman break Elder Kettle's glasses, and they go to the city to a shop to get them repaired. While they're waiting for the lady to do her job and stop being a prick, Miss Chalice shows up. She sings a song, steals sunglasses, and leaves. Mugman and Cuphead are like, who the hell was that? How was she able to charm the worker, and they follow her around for a while. Miss Chalice notices, confronts them about it, and she sings the song Turnin' Up the Charm, which is literally the best song in the series. I don't care what anyone says. Miss Chalice spends the whole day with the boys, and at the end, she tries to teach them how to charm people into getting their way. They go to a factory, attempt to charm the worker, it doesn't work, so Miss Chalice comes in and gets them in. Turns out, they got into a cookie factory, which is what started the whole episode, is because they wanted cookies. They eat a bunch, cops show up, Cuphead and Mugman knock themselves unconscious. Before police storm in, Miss Chalice turns into a ghost and leaves them behind. The episode ends with Cuphead and Mugman being thrown in jail, and that's the end of Season 1. This episode is it's such an amazing introduction to Miss Chalice, another character who, as previously mentioned, has such an amazing character arc the entire series. Her first episode, while it does kinda suck that she abandons Cuphead and Mugman, later on, once you get her backstory, it makes a lot of sense, and it kinda gives the series rewatchability. I love this setting, I love them exploring more of the Inkwell Isles, because it's such a fun creative setting. It's so nice to finally be able to see more of it, even if it is just in a little short song. Also, even though the song is a lot better on the official release soundtrack than it is in the episode, it's still amazing. It's also one of, if not the only, it's the only time in the series that Cuphead and Mugman get to sing. I do not count Ghosts Ain't Real because that was more them talking to the melody than singing. Speaking of which, I love Cuphead, Mugman, and Miss Chalice together. They have such a nice, almost sibling-like relationship, and it's just so fun to see them. So, yeah, Season 1 is arguably amazing, and while I do think certain episodes are a little bit weaker or more forgettable than others, it's still everything I could have asked for from a Cuphead show. The setting being set up is really nice, even if it's very different from the game, which is actually a complaint I'll go over an entire section later on, like an entire section debunking dumb things that people have said about the show, but for now, let's move on to Season 2. Now, Season 2 is unique in that it has this, gradual build-up the entire season. That, of course, being the growing divide between Cuphead and Mugman. And while, of course, they bicker and fight, but they always make up in the end, and they end up forgiving one another. But in Season 2, that slowly stops happening, and it all comes to a climax by the end. So, let's talk about the season. Episode 1, Jailbroken, picks up right where Season 1 left off. Cuphead and Mugman are in prison and they try to escape. Cuphead tries in very violent and asinine ways to get them out of prison, and it doesn't work. Mugman kind of gives up and decides we're just gonna wait it out, serve our time, whatever. And it isn't until Cuphead gives up trying to escape that Mugman is like, oh hell no. I'm supposed to be the weak one, not you. We're getting out of here. And it turns out that the Cyclops prisoner that Mugman befriended helps them get out of prison, they get home, and the episode ends. It's sort of the start of the conflict of Cuphead and Mugman arguing, but it isn't about little things anymore, like a blindfolded pillow fight or stealing ice cream. It's about being stuck in prison and wanting to escape said prison. It's, like I mentioned already, it's a really good start. Also, the giant is amazing, and I love her. I love you, Miss Cyclops.
Hi, it's editing Oliver. Turns out I mixed up Charmed and Dangerous and High Seas Adventure, and I said them in the wrong order. I'm too tired to go back and re-record 5 minutes worth of footage, so let's just pretend that I said 2 and 3, okay?
Episode 3, Charmed and Dangerous, is Miss Chalice's reintroduction in the season. She shows up saying she's being chased by an angry mob, and she apologizes for getting them thrown in jail. They spend the day together, like usual, and then the angry mob ends up showing up. Miss Chalice says that she's sorry, and that she just didn't want to be on her own anymore. Mugman hears this, and that's when he starts being a lot more kind to Miss Chalice, tries to stick up for her. It doesn't work, and Miss Chalice is officially revealed to be a ghost before she disappears once again, and the episode ends. I love this episode. I mentioned Mugman starting to be a lot more brave as the series goes on, and this is a really good example of that, where he starts to stick up for Chalice. It's nice. It's a fun episode, even if it is a little, not much happens. Episode 2, A High Seas Adventure, is a long episode. It introduces 2 bosses from the games, and it's literally just amazing. It starts with Cuphead and Mugman being on a dock, and they find a pirate ship. Cuphead immediately jumps onto the ship, Mugman eventually joins him, and they end up accidentally sailing their ship away, and they get lost at sea. The captain of the ship, Captain Brinybeard, shows up and is like, oh god, who are these two little cup people, and why are they on my ship? They end up agreeing to help him get his girlfriend back, and so they travel to this very scary part of the ocean, and Cala Maria shows up. Oh my god, I love Cala Maria. She turns Brinybeard to stone for talking too much, such an icon, and they have to chase her down because the ship crashed and they're kind of screwed. There's a little bit more shown of Mugman being brave, like fighting off a crab, and being the one to try to give this little box of candy to Cala Maria. She ends up kind of charmed by him. Brinybeard gets unturned to stone, and then turned to stone, and then unturned to stone because love. I don't know. The episode ends with Cala Maria chasing them out of the cave. Mugman is deemed a real pirate because he kept his word. Cuphead dies and the episode ends. This one is another one that I feel like even if you don't like the whole series, I really recommend just watching this one episode. It's funny, it's pretty faithful to the games, and also it sets up one of my main complaints with the show, which is why do the bosses not like Cuphead and Mugman when in the game they did. So Mugman being on good terms with Brinybeard actually does make sense here. Also, it's just a nice setting. I love Cala Maria's song. I love the stupid bird. Yeah, it's a really nice episode. Episode 4, Another Brother, is more of that conflict between Cuphead and Mugman, except it's more is happening in it. It starts with Cuphead almost doing something dangerous and getting himself killed, and Mugman once again stopping him. They get into an argument and split up, and they decide that they're each gonna go find their own brother to replicate each other. But it turns out they can kind of only tolerate each other, because Mugman ends up finding someone who's just too much of an anxious wreck to actually have conversation with, and he starts mimicking Cuphead in the whole, alright, officer of the fun police. Cuphead ends up fighting Bullboy, and I'm gonna be honest, in this script, one of the notes I have is, fuck you, Bullboy. Bullboy is Cuphead if Cuphead wasn't a silly little goober. He's just all over the place, dangerous, and out of control, and Cuphead starts mimicking Mugman in the way that he's like, no, this is too dangerous, we shouldn't be doing this. By the end of the episode, Cuphead and Mugman make up and realize, yeah, we kind of have to stick with each other, because we can't tolerate anyone else. So, while it's another episode that a lot of people dislike, I like this one, even if it's not one that I regularly rewatch. It's, again, really good to continue the conflict between these two that's gonna go on the entire season. Episode 5, Sweet Temptation, is another boss from the game appearing, this time Varanus von Bonbon. Cuphead and Mugman get into an argument, and it turns out Mugman still has Halloween candy. Obviously, the second Mugman leaves, Cuphead eats that shit. Mugman gets angry at him, throws him out the house, and Cuphead, while walking through the woods, ends up fighting Sugarland. He meets the Baroness, who tells him that the two rules are to not tell anyone about Sugarland, and to not eat out of her castle. Cuphead immediately breaks rule number 1 and brings Mugman here as an apology for eating his Halloween candy. Mugman then breaks rule number 2 and eats from the castle. The Baroness turns them into candy, chases them out, and the episode ends with Elder Kettle, eating the candy? I don't know. Honestly, I like this one. Even if it has a bit of a weird ending, it makes sense. It's a cartoony episodic series, right? I love the Baroness, she's insane. I'm so sad that we never actually got to see what happened to her. Screw you, Netflix, I hate you. But the episode is really nice, and I love the whole message about self-control. It's something that my real-life brother really needs to hear. Episode 6, The Ice Cream Man, is another Mugman episode! Yippee! I love Mugman! The episode starts with Mugman pretending to be sick so he can get out of errands, and then he starts reading a book where he self-ships himself with Cala Maria. The Ice Cream Man shows up and interrupts his book, and he tells him to leave and turn the music off. This happens a few more times, Mugman progressively getting more and more angry, until he literally breaks into the ice cream truck, screaming at the Ice Cream Man to turn the music on, fix his hat, and get out of here. He ends up feeling bad because Cala Maria, he was self-shipping with, is like, no, I can't be with someone who is so rude to the Ice Cream Man. And Mugman gets upset, he goes to find the Ice Cream Man, and another misunderstanding where the Ice Cream Man's like, oh man, I took your advice, I got a slightly smaller hat. Mugman attacks him, Elder Kettle and Cuphead get home, and the episode ends. Another episode that, while in the grand scheme of things, isn't that great. It has really funny gags. I always love Mugman-centered episodes, and it's fun. Episode 7, Piano Lesson, explores more of Mugman's jealousy, which is a trait that, well, lightly hinted at, was never truly explored. Yes, it's another Mugman episode. We got 2 back-to-back. Thank you, Cuphead Show team. I love you. The episode starts with Mugman getting instructed by this dude named Ludwig. I don't like this man. I really don't, but that's not the point. The point is, Mugman sucks at the piano, Cuphead is some sort of child prodigy, and so Cuphead gets to go to this piano recital that Mugman really wanted to go to. Mugman gets jealous and plans to kill Cuphead at the recital. It doesn't end up working. Cuphead ends up not going because Ludwig was lying the whole time and wanted to manipulate him for a song in order to win the recital himself. Ludwig dies. Like, I'm pretty sure he actually does die. I'm not even joking this time. He gets crushed by a piano. Not much to say about this one either, other than it is really good for the overgoing conflict. Ludwig was a really odd choice to be put in. Like, out of all the characters from the game to be put in, why was it him and not Canteen? But anyways, he's nice. Episode 8, Release the Demons, is another one that I'm probably going to be talking a lot about because I love this episode. It starts with Mugman trying to scare Cuphead with his horse head because it scared them when they were, like, babies or something. I can't tell. They're really small and cute, and I love them. Just to prove Mugman wrong, Cuphead decides that they both need to go to this aforementioned corn maze and prove that Cuphead wasn't scared. In the meantime, the devil is angry at Cuphead. You know, like always, this is when he's reintroduced to the series. He tries to send out his finest demons, end up accidentally killing most of them, and then he's stuck with the third best, which are now the first best. I love them. Also, King Dice is back, let's go! The demons go to find Cuphead and Mugman, and they all fail because either they're incompetent or King Dice kills them with this little dog demon thing that he also ends up killing. The devil gets angry and decides to release the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which actually have really neat designs. Cuphead does end up frozen in terror because of the horses of, like, the apocalypse, not the little horse head Mugman has. Mugman doesn't care though, he still thinks it's the horse head. The episode ends, yeah, it doesn't really have a big conclusive ending like others. That doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, I still love this one. Episode 9, Dead Broke, Chalice comes back, let's go! The episode starts with Cuphead and Mugman fighting before Chalice appears and reveals that she's half ghost, half human. She doesn't reveal how though, it's just shown that that's what she is. They go out to get ice cream, and they don't have money for ice cream. So Cuphead brings up the idea of scamming people using Miss Chalice's ghost form, where they pretend to be ghost removers and get her off the property. They end up getting a decent amount of money from this, but they decide to get a little bit greedy. They find a haunted house, where Miss Chalice accidentally releases 4 sisters who were trapped in paintings. There's some, like, Hanna-Barbera shit, but I love it, where sisters chase them around and try to trap them in paintings so they don't get trapped in the paintings again. It doesn't work. Cuphead, Mugman, and Chalice get out alright, but they did leave their piggy bank inside, and they don't end up getting the ice cream that they scam people for. It's a really nice and cartoony episode. I'm totally not biased about episodes with Mugman and Chalice. I'm definitely not biased, but it's a really fun one, just kinda goofy. Episode 10, Rats All Folks, is another intro to a boss from the game, this time being Werner Vermin. Cuphead and Mugman try to bake a cake for Elder Kettle when Werner Vermin shows up. He's this little rat, like a very small rat. He tries to take over the cottage, Elder Kettle's war instincts kick in, they have a fight, Werner leaves, and the house is destroyed in the end. It's another funny episode. I love Werner. I love by the end he just loses the German accent. He's just like, alright, I'm done here, and he leaves. It's funny, and I love Elder Kettle appreciation. Now, this entire video, I've been doing my usual talking about each episode, but I'm gonna be honest, these next 2 episodes are my absolute least favorite of the entire series, and while I'm gonna be explaining the basis of the episode, it's mainly gonna be me incoherently rambling about why I dislike them. You know, instead of me incoherently rambling about why I love each episode. Episode 11, Say Cheese, is about Cuphead, Mugman, and Elder Kettle. Elder Kettle wants to get a family photo of them, but Cuphead and Mugman won't stop fighting. They end up finding an old billboard where they learn that Elder Kettle has an embarrassing poster history. Elder Kettle commits arson, and he ends up getting arrested for it. All 3 of them get arrested for their various crimes, and that's when the episode ends. And I can't say, like, one good thing about the episode. I love how that the mugshot they got, Elder Kettle does end up keeping. It's a nice touch. I hate the rest of the episode, though. First off, they all felt very out of character. Cuphead was uncharacteristically obnoxious, and not obnoxious in like the, oh, he's, just kind of silly, oblivious. Obnoxious in a, I want to kick this child as hard as I possibly can kind of way. Mugman also just really didn't act like himself. Like, he's supposed to be the responsible one. Why would he, if he was told we could do both the amusement park and movies if you two behave, why would Mugman not listen? That's, the entire series is him being the opposite to Cuphead's obnoxious, loud personality, where he's more calm and rational. Why would he act like that too? And like, it's an okay episode. It's not great. It's nowhere near on the level of even episodes that are okay to me, like Ghosts Ain't Real. It's just, Say Cheese is like a 4 out of 10, but oh my god, the next episode. Episode 12, Lost in the Woods. I can say like a couple good things about Say Cheese, but this episode, it's wintertime, and the 3, Elder Kettle, Mugman, and Cuphead, are trying to get firewood before winter comes. Cuphead is being a dick the entire episode, just 13 minutes of him being obnoxious, and not in the fun way. He ends up destroying their firewood with fireworks. Elder Kettle sends him off into the woods to get more, and Mugman follows him for some reason. Why did he have to go? Like, he's not responsible for any of what was happening. Why did he have to go with him? They get lost in the woods, well, like the title of the episode. Mugman is being responsible, and Cuphead is doing his usual I ain't too worried about it shtick. Except it gets so old so quickly. Cuphead grows a beard. Mugman has a little cabin in the woods that Cuphead breaks into, kicks him out of, and they end up getting back home, and it's fine. He attaches Mugman to rocket fireworks, and the episode ends. I was trying so hard when explaining that to, like, not go off into another rant, but just, oh my god, I can't hold back any longer. Okay, first off, you thought Cuphead and Say Cheese was, like, a little annoying, but okay? No. In this one, he was just the most obnoxious little shit. And not in, like, the funny, cute way like he was in, like, Roll the Dice or High Seas Adventure. He was just, I have never, well, a few times before, but in this series, I have never more wanted to grab his little head and chuck it as far as I can. And I've never felt that way about Cuphead before. He's always been like a comfort character to me. I love this little guy. But in this episode, oh my god, he was just getting on my last nerve. And then, I don't know if anyone else watches SpongeBob, but you know those, like, Squidward torture episodes in SpongeBob, where it feels like this episode serves no purpose other than to make Squidward's life harder? Yeah, this is like a Mugman torture episode. I know I already mentioned this, like, when describing the plot of the episode. Why did Mugman have to go with him? He was not responsible for any of this shit. Why did he have to get punished too? And he isn't. Why was he here? You could have had an episode just revolved around Cuphead doing his usual I'm not too worried about it thing, and then he realizes, oh crap, I'm lost, I need to get serious about something, and he makes it home, and Mugman and Elder Kettle are at home. You could have done that. There's episodes with the Cuphead spotlight where Mugman is written out of the episode. Oh, like Roll the Dice. And while yes, Lost in the Woods, the one slight praise I can give it is that it is the height of the conflict between Cuphead and Mugman, and it's very much shown. But just because it's the height of the conflict doesn't mean they need to act like this. Like, what? Why? What? This whole episode, I felt like I was just screaming at my screen, just why are you acting like this? One of my least favorite tropes in just, like, all of media consumption ever, video games, movies, books, anything, is when the solution to a problem is so obvious, but the characters in that scene don't know what to do. When the solution is so obvious. That really grinds my gears, is when there's episodes like that. Whenever I do my rewatch, I always skip these 2 episodes. Like, I might be able to tolerate say cheese if I'm in a good mood, but never Lost in the Woods. It just, oh, it gets on my nerves so badly. Well, now that my throat hurts because I've been screaming about an episode of a children's show for too long, we get on to the last episode of season 2, which is actually a decent one. Episode 13, The Devil's Pitchfork, is, as mentioned, the last episode of season 2. It starts out with the devil deciding he wants to get on, like, a winning streak or whatever, and he takes his pitchfork and he goes terrorizing Equal Isles. He ends up forgetting his pitchfork when he goes back to hell with henchmen, and Cuphead and Mugman end up fighting the pitchfork. They goof off with it for a while until the devil realizes his pitchfork is gone and goes to look for it. He ends up finding the destruction that Cuphead and Mugman caused, and he confronts them about it. He ends up spilling that Cuphead's soul debt expired. So, in an earlier episode, which I totally forgot to mention, and I'm so sorry about this, it was actually Release the Demons, Cuphead's soul debt is expired, as explained by Stickler, which is a character I refuse to talk about. Basically, you have 30 days to get a soul before it returns to its original owner. So Cuphead is no longer in debt to the devil. In this episode, that's when Cuphead and Mugman find out that Cuphead is no longer in debt to the devil, and they have his pitchfork, which is his only source of power. Something the devil also accidentally mentions. So, Cuphead is like, oh man, I feel so bad for you. Here, take your pitchfork back. And accidentally zaps the devil with it. The pitchfork is kind of implied to have some sort of sentience, which is actually a kind of neat concept. The devil gets angry and tells Cuphead that because he took something of value to the devil's gonna take something of value to him. And of course, Cuphead's like, oh man, you can't take anything I care about. So the devil takes Mugman. While the episode is just kind of a segue into season 3, it's still a decent one. I like the ending when Cuphead kind of has this oh shit moment, like, oh, he just took Mugman. He just took my only friend. Oh god, what am I gonna do now? I really like the ending. Also, all the gags with Mugman and Cuphead messing around with the pitchfork are all super funny. So, that was season 2. It was honestly such a mixed bag, and while it does have amazing episodes like High Seas Adventure, there's Lost in the Woods. And while I think season 2 is the weakest of the 3 seasons, it's definitely not bad in the slightest. Like, it's still a very good season of the show, even if it's just not my favorite. Season 3, which is the last season, seems to fix a lot of the issues that the first 2 seasons has. Each episode is really good, and even though I have my gripes with one of them, it's a good season. Episode 1, The Devil's Revenge, picks up right where the last episode left off. Cuphead realizing that he no longer has Mugman, and he has to go look for him. Mugman's down in hell, and he's just kinda chillin'. Like, he's just down there playing marbles, talking to the other people stuck down there. He kinda knows Cuphead's gonna come save him, and he isn't really that worried. Cuphead talks to Quadratus and gets a magic chalk that'll let Cuphead go down to hell. He gets Mugman, they have a fight, not really a fight scene, but a chase scene with the devil. They end up destroying a soul vault, and they escape. Also, funny thing at the end of the episode is because Cuphead is no longer in debt to the devil, he immediately goes back to that carnival game to keep showing off. I love him. So, this is a very nice conclusion to the whole arc with Cuphead and Mugman being angry at each other. This is kind of what I was talking about, where no matter what happens, they're brothers. They're gonna make up in the end and still be there for each other. Also, Mugman was just such a mood the entire episode. I love the gag when the devil's like, oh man, it's been 80 years, Cuphead is dead. And Mugman's like, oh, so he's here then. And he's like, no, I know my brother. If he isn't down here, then he's not dead. I love that. I'm honestly, given everything else, I'm surprised Netflix let them keep that in the episode. Also, Henchman is there. Henchman has a whole B-plot. Him and Quadratus go on vacation together. I love you, Henchman. Episode 2, Don't Answer the Door, is kind of like winding down from everything that's been happening so far. It's just an episode where Cuphead and Mugman are at home in the cottage, and the baby bottle from season 1 shows up at their door. They panic and decide, well, if we just stay inside and we don't answer the door, then baby bottle can't get to us. A bear ends up stealing the basket with the bottle in it, and they're like, oh crap, we don't want to be responsible for the death of an infant, and they go out trying to find it. Turns out that it was just a prank played by Elder Kettle, and then the actual baby bottle shows up, beats up a bear, and the 3 are safe inside. Another short, funny episode, and a really nice winding down from the previous, season of conflict. It was really nice. Episode 3, Cup Staged, is amazing. Am I biased because I'm a theater kid? Yes, obviously. Literally, in a month, I'm going to my first rehearsal for a play. Yeah, I love this episode. Basically, Cuphead and Mugman both want to be in a play, and they want to get the same role. Then the devil shows up and is like, actually, I want that role. They fight a lot, cute little hijinks between the devil and Cuphead, kind of showing that Cuphead and the devil are like two sides of the same coin, essentially. Sally Stageplay is also there. She appeared a couple times in previous episodes, but she has a bit more of a spotlight here. And by the end, she ends up auditioning none of them, and she ends up taking every part and playing every part, with everyone else acting as stagehands, and Mugman has backstage fright. Now, as previously mentioned, I am very biased towards this episode, which is surprising because it's not one based around Miss Chalice. I don't know why I'm biased towards this one. But as someone who's done theater for a few years now, yeah, this is essentially the kind of shit that people get up to backstage. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been backstage waiting for a cue and just looked over and other people are just goofing off doing the dumbest of things. I could honestly just make an entire video about all the weird shit I've gotten up to backstage. But I'm not gonna get into that. We're talking about Cuphead today. The episode's fun. I love the outfit change the devil does. He looks amazing. I love Sally Stageplay. She's the most overhated boss in Cuphead, and you literally cannot change my mind. It's a fun episode. Also, the notes from the Art of the Cuphead Show book they're just hilarious. I love that book. Episode 4, Roadkill, is another devil-themed episode, and also Elder Kettle-themed. It starts with the devil down in hell, and he's told that because he hasn't gotten a soul in so long, things that he cares about are gonna start being put into magic bubbles until he gets another soul and meets a quota. Lovely. And when he goes to the surface world to try to find one, he gets hit by Elder Kettle's car. Elder Kettle feels bad and doesn't want to be responsible for the death of a random street cat, so he takes the cat, not realizing that it's actually the devil. The devil plays along, acts like a cat, and is thinking, oh, I can just steal Elder Kettle's soul. But he ends up growing a soft spot for him and is like, oh god, I can't do that. He ends up stealing the soul of the telephone reoccurring character. Elder Kettle is sad because he wanted something to take care of, and then the goat shows up, and he's like, oh, I can just take care of my goat. It's a really cute episode. I love exploring a bit more of Elder Kettle, and obviously any devil-centered episode is really nice. This is kind of what I said earlier about the devil sort of being like a minor inconvenience in later seasons. The next two episodes are actually Christmas specials, which, as of the time that I'm recording this, it's November 16th, so Christmas is actually coming up. So after I do my yearly rewatch of It's a SpongeBob Christmas, I'm probably also gonna rewatch these two episodes. Episode 5, Holiday Tree-dition, is an episode centered around Cuphead, Mugman, and Elder Kettle. Mainly Cuphead and Mugman. They go to get a tree because that's their yearly tradition, and Cuphead and Mugman are told, you two should continue on the tradition because you're old enough now. So they go out to find a tree. The tree dies, but it's okay because it's still a tradition and they're all there as a family, and that's what matters. It's a short episode, but it's a nice one. Episode 6, A Very Devil Christmas, is kind of the star of the show when it comes to the Christmas episodes. Basically, the devil wants this little train, and he goes to Santa and finds out that he's at the very top of the naughty list forever. He then lies and transforms into Santa in a very terrifying transformation scene, so he has to do Santa's job for him, and he ends up actually seeing the train he wants, but he has to give it up to Cuphead, and he's faced with doing the right thing, which is doing his job, or keeping it for himself, and he decides to be nice, and he gives Cuphead the train. But at the end of the episode, there's a happy ending, because Henchman shows up and makes a train for the devil. It's cute. It's a cute episode. I love Henchman. He's there. Any episode with Henchman in it is automatically the bestest ever. Episode 7, Special Delivery. Tallulah episode, and that's all that matters. It's a kind of pork rind-centered episode where Cuphead, Mugman, and Miss Chalice end up breaking one of his windows with a baseball, and they have to work off the debt to get their baseball back. Pork Rind sends them on a mission to deliver a package that he got earlier, and they dress up in disguises to get into the fly trap. The fly trap is where they're delivering the package, I forgot to mention that. They all dress up, with Mugman dressing up as a washed-up dancer named Tallulah Piccolo. She's the real star of the show. They end up fighting, Chalice and Mugman fighting because they both want the shoes that are in the package that they're supposed to be giving to Ribby and Croaks, but they don't wanna. By the end, they have a little scene where they're fighting, and it's kind of cute. Ribby and Croaks don't end up taking the package, and Pork Rind is getting worried because the shoes will actually explode. They're bombs. And he's actually kind of worried about Cuphead and Mugman and Miss Chalice, which I think is really cute. He takes the shoes back, he gives them their ball, and the shoes explode and destroy him and everything around him. By the end of the episode, the devil actually hears the explosion and realizes Miss Chalice is with Cuphead and Mugman and realizes, oh crap, she owes me a favor! And that's how the episode ends. Again, I love the sibling bond these three have. It's a fun episode. I love you, Tallulah. And it sets up the ending segment of the series. Episode 8, Down and Out, is King Dice's reintroduction. Hi, it's me again. It's Oliver from the future, and I forgot to mention something when initially recording this, so I'm gonna mention it now. Basically, yes, King Dice did technically lose everything, got fired, in the episode Roll the Dice, but in Release the Demons, it was confirmed by Tiki Beak on Twitter that King Dice just sort of invited himself to the thing with the devil and the demons. So yeah, that's kind of why he was in that episode, when technically he was supposed to be fired. I forgot to mention that, and I thought it'd be easier to clear up here rather than on-screen text, so yippee, back to the actual video. The episode starts with Cuphead and Mugman trying to be entertainers, and King Dice is in the alleyway of what used to be the studio where he recorded his radio show. He hears them, tries to kill them with a metal pipe, and Cuphead and Mugman are like, wait, we can help you get your show back. They go to this old barn, they set it up for like a club thing for King Dice to do his little show again. He sings Roll the Dice, which is the second best song in the series. Henchman tells the devil about this because the devil's been missing Razzle Dazzle down in hell because everything is just kind of boring now. Throughout the series, demons slowly start disappearing. Obviously, King Dice is gone. The devil's bored and misses how things used to be. Anyways, the devil and Henchman go to this club and realize King Dice is there. The devil gets angry because King Dice violated his contract. He's not supposed to be performing, but King Dice reveals that no, he was actually doing this all to get Cuphead's soul, who he tricked into thinking that's his manager. Cuphead doesn't sign the contract, though. That would give over his soul, because according to him, singing is out and jokes are in, and Mugman has this little puppet thing with him that he's had the whole episode, and yeah. King Dice is like, oh crap, I'm about to get double fired, and the devil and Henchman end up leaving. King Dice is leaving around the same time. The devil stops and is like, hey, I need you back in hell. I need your razzle dazzle. And King Dice is like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go back with you then. And the episode ends. I love this episode. I love the narration that King Dice has the whole episode. It's really nice. I love the little puppet thing Mugman has. I love the devil dice crumbs. It's a nice episode. Really fun one. And again, another really good build up to the ending of the series. Episode 9, Joyride, is a little bit forgettable, but it's still a fun one. And of course, Miss Chalice episode. I love Miss Chalice episodes. It starts with Elder Kettle acting like he's not supposed to, and giving Cuphead and Mugman fireworks to light inside the house. They go out for a day of fun when it's revealed that Chalice is actually possessing Elder Kettle. The three of them still have their day of fun together, with Chalice using her possession powers to just goof off and do fun things. By the end, she realizes that the devil needs her, and she has to leave Cuphead and Mugman behind again. She's taken down to hell, and the episode ends. Yeah, it's a little bit of a forgettable episode, and technically you can just completely write it out of the series, but it's still fun, and again, it's a Miss Chalice episode, so it's gonna be great. Episode 10, Dance with Danger, is the one episode I mentioned that I have a little bit of a gripe about, which, you know, is surprising, because it's a Chalice episode. The whole episode is essentially just an exposition dump for Miss Chalice. She was an orphan staying at an orphanage, and she loved dancing, but the orphanage didn't let her have any fun. She escaped and learned how to manipulate people into getting what she wants by dancing and charming people. As she gets a little bit older, she ends up dying and getting hit by a streetcar. She wakes up as a ghost in front of the devil, where, turns out, all of the things she's done is not very good. But she makes a deal with the devil to return back to life. In exchange for being half alive, half ghost, she now owes the devil a favor. Once she's back to life, she charms her way into a glasses store, which is actually where the episode In Charm's Way happens when she meets Cuphead and Mugman. She talks about how those are the only two people who've ever really been there for her, and that's why she cares so much about them. She appears in front of the devil, who tells her, hey, I need that favor, I need you to kill your friends. And it's pretty good conflict, actually, because the whole series, Miss Chalice has been trying to be there for them and be a good friend, and now she's faced with repaying her debt or protecting her friends. It's a really good conflict for her. Now, as I kind of stated in the beginning of the explanation, it's sort of just an exposition dump for Miss Chalice. I don't know, it didn't feel normal. Like, first off, why would she have 11 minutes in the elevator ride to hell to explain to henchmen everything she's been through? I think, personally, it would have been better if Dance with Danger could have been sort of like an epilogue thing. Maybe after the whole thing with the devil, Miss Chalice could have explained her story to Cuphead and Mugman, to people who would, want to know her story, because that's their friend. But anyways, it's a really good episode. I love Baby Chalice. I like her backstory. It makes sense with her character. But now we're moving on to the final episode of the series. Episode 11, The Devil and Miss Chalice, is, as mentioned, the final episode of the series. It starts off a couple months after the events of Joyride and Dance with Danger, where Cuphead and Mugman realize, hey, we haven't seen Chalice in a while, I wonder where she is. Turns out she was down in hell distracting the devil so she wouldn't have to put Cuphead and Mugman in harm's way. The devil is reminded of why Miss Chalice has been distracting him for 2 months and tells her to go to the surface world and get Cuphead and Mugman's souls or she's gonna die. So that's what she does. She finds them in an arcade and almost gets them to sign the contract to hand over their souls. But she ends up ripping up the contract, telling them to run and that she doesn't want them being hurt. He tells her that she is the one who should be running and almost kills her, but before she goes, Miss Chalice says that at least she'll die knowing she was the greatest dancer. The devil's ego is hurt by this, and is like, no, I'm the greatest dancer, and they end up having a dance battle. I love this show, if you can't tell. They decide to have a dance-off to truly see who's the greatest dancer, and if Miss Chalice wins, then she goes. She's set free, her debt is cleared. The dance goes pretty fine, Miss Chalice almost wins, but marbles that Cuphead gave her end up tripping her up, and she ends up losing. But before she can die, Cuphead appears and is like, no, don't kill her, I'll play you in a game instead. He says that he'll fight the devil, play him in a game, and if he wins, then Miss Chalice's debt is cleared and he leaves them alone. And if not, then he can kill Chalice, take Cuphead and Mugman's soul. Which, funny thing about this scene, I like how he waits until Mugman is in earshot to say this. Cuphead decides to fight him in rock, paper, scissors, which he's then reminded they both have equal chances of winning. Cuphead's pretty brave, but he's not the brightest. We love him anyways. But because Cuphead is so careless, he ends up winning every round of rock, paper, scissors because he just doesn't overthink it like others do. The devil gets increasingly frustrated and insulted by this, and Mugman completes his arc of being brave and standing up for his friends. He appears and is like, no, Cuphead won, leave us alone, and he drags Cuphead away before anything else can happen. The crowd cheers and celebrates Cuphead, Mugman, and Miss Chalice winning against the devil. The devil kind of fucks off, and that's where the scene ends. The last scene of the episode is sort of an epilogue, where a couple months after the whole situation with the devil, they end up finding the grand opening to the Devil's Casino. Cuphead immediately runs off wanting to explore, Mugman and Chalice chase after him, and that's where the series ends. So, that's it. That's all of the episodes of the Cuphead Show. It's really sad that such an amazing series with so much potential got cut short, but that's it. Now, I hinted at it earlier, but now that the overview of the show is over, it's time. In defense of the Cuphead Show, it's based on the series by Hiding in Private on YouTube. Basically, I'm gonna be going over common criticisms of the show and explaining why they're dumb. Okay, first and foremost, the main complaint that I see about the show is that it isn't animated like the game. And I mean, obviously, the game took almost a decade to be released because of how long animation takes. Hand-drawn animation isn't easy, especially with the way Studio MDHR went about it. It's animated on ones, 24 frames a second. Basically, for those who don't know, each second is 24 individual frames of art that were inked onto paper one by one. Cuphead's rubber hose cartoon style works so well in the game because it's a game. Animation loops are what make video games up, but for a show, it's just not logical, ethical, or financially reasonable to animate an entire show like cartoons were animated in the 1930s. Like, there's a reason rubber hose cartoons are like 4 minutes long at most, and that's because of just how long it takes to animate things on paper. Animation pen to paper is excruciatingly tedious, and it takes time. And given the fact that Netflix sort of goes out of its way to screw over its animators and producers to save as much money as possible, if the show was animated pen to paper, first off, episodes would come out, like, at the very least, once every 4 or so months. And that estimate is being generous. So not only would animators be forced to work awful hours in order to finish even a single episode of the show, it's just not logical to produce a show today using that style. It makes the most logical sense to animate by industry standards. I'm gonna be honest, whenever I see this argument being made, I kind of immediately dismiss it, because when people say that, I already know in the back of my mind, the person making this argument has no idea how animation or the animation industry works. Animation pen to paper in 2024 is just never gonna work out, especially for a company like Netflix. Studio MDHR is a small indie studio. That's why Cuphead was made, because Cuphead is the dream of a very dedicated team of developers and artists. Netflix, a multi-billion-dollar company, does not care about its artists or the product being made. It cares about money, so it's no surprise that the Cuphead show was done digitally and not pen to paper. And on top of all that, despite not being faithful to the specific animation style of the Cuphead game, the Cuphead show is very faithful to the rubber hose style. That's something I rarely see people bring up, is that the show really does look and act like a 1930s cartoon. So even if the animation is digital, it's still a good show and the art style is faithful to the source material and the time period that it's referencing. Next is the argument that the show doesn't follow the game. I'm gonna go off topic a little bit, but this reminds me of the people complaining about the Scott Pilgrim anime. Did you really want to see the same story a third time? Why not tell a new story with the same characters and the same universe? That's what the Cuphead show is. It takes place in the same setting with the same characters, and while it's very different from the game, and I can go into immense detail about how the continuity doesn't line up at all with the game, it makes total sense why the show tells a different story than the games. And besides, this show ends where the game picks up. The story of Cuphead and Mugman fighting the Deaders still happens. It just happens in a kinda different universe and a kinda different timeline. The Cuphead show is just sort of like a prologue to Don't Deal with the Devil. I also want to touch briefly on the argument of in-show continuity not making sense, i.e. episodes ending in a goofy way that aren't touched upon later. Which, to anyone who genuinely believes this, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you've literally never watched a cartoon in your entire life. Cartoons aren't really meant to have decent continuity. When to be honest, Gravity Falls and Infinity Train are probably the only cartoons I can think of that actually follow some type of continuity. You know, like for example, in one episode of Gravity Falls, if the Mystery Shack is destroyed, then it'll be under construction in the next episode, or previous passengers of Infinity Train being referenced. That makes sense because those are very story-based series. The Cuphead show is not. But if you take cartoons like SpongeBob, or even cartoons from the 1930s and 40s that Cuphead is based off of, none of the stories align with each other. They're episodic. The Cuphead show, while it does have overarching arcs and character development, it's a cartoon through and through. I don't understand why people are upset that it doesn't have this overarching complex story in each episode. Finally, another thing I want to touch on briefly is people saying that the characters act out of character. And I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here, but what I mean is they act out of character throughout the entire series, not just 1 or 2 episodes. This isn't Lost in the Woods again, don't worry. I mainly see this argument around Elder Kettle, which genuinely confuses me, because even in the games, Elder Kettle wasn't the most responsible caregiver. Like, you have Cuphead and Mugman, who are essentially his children, who run home randomly and are like, hey, we did the one thing we were told not to do, and we gambled our souls away to the devil. And Elder Kettle is just like, well shit, here's a potion, go kill your enemies. Elder Kettle in the game is not as wise and responsible as he's framed to be. Even in the comics, which came out before the show, Elder Kettle acts very similar there to how he does in the show. He's a stupid old man, but, you know, in an affectionate way, he's a stupid old man. Same goes for Miss Chalice. Miss Chalice has always been, like, a little bit manipulative. In the opening of the Delicious Last Course, she essentially kills Mugman to make herself alive again, and judging by her reaction when the cookie wore off, she didn't expect Mugman to be able to come back to life. She's not honest in the game either, and she's not honest in the show until, like, the very end of the series. Yeah, those are just some common complaints I see about the series that I wanted to debunk. I don't know, they just always really got on my nerves, and I wanted a good excuse to talk about that. Alright, so let's say, right here, right now, I'm taken to a Netflix boardroom meeting, and I'm in charge of continuing the Cuphead show. How would I go about it? First and foremost, I'm gonna scrap the casino ending, have Cuphead be stopped by Chalice and Mugman, but plant the seeds of curiosity of him and Mugman wanting to explore the casino. Don't Deal with the Devil starts with Mugman and Cuphead being curious and going to explore the casino. It would make sense to sort of at least imply that they're both curious and wanting to explore it. Also, somehow introduce a character to replace Legendary Chalice. If the show somehow does occur in the same universe as the game, then there needs to be a Legendary Chalice replacement. This isn't just because I'm very insane about Legendary Chalice. It also is just because she's very important to Don't Deal with the Devil, and is literally the only reason why the delicious last course happens. So, kind of need to replace her somehow. I need a Mugman and Miss Chalice episode so badly. I need them to go off and do their own thing together. Just please. Also, it would be really fun to show off more of the bosses. In the Art of the Cuphead Show book, they mentioned how there were a couple bosses like Hilda and Beppy that they just didn't know how to translate well to the show. But there are some bosses that already do fit in the show, like Grim Matchstick or the Phantom Express. Literally in the show book, they joke about needing to introduce Goopy at some point. I hinted at it earlier, and I'm just gonna say it. Let Cuphead and Mugman sing. Let them have a duet. Please. It doesn't even have to be like a big episode or anything. Just like maybe at the start of an episode, they're sitting around, they're listening to the radio, and they start singing along to it. Every character got a song. Even Elder Kettle got a song. Why did Cuphead and Mugman not get a song? Clearly, their voice actors can sing. Turning Up the Charm is a really good song, and I love them singing in it. Please let the boys sing. Evil and Vile, it happens. That episode, it happens. I love the messed up evil cops. Let them have their own episode. Also, maybe have some type of follow-up episode where Miss Malice is introduced. I think that would be fun too. I would like more of Elder Kettle. It doesn't even have to be an episode centered around him. Maybe just something where he takes his family out for the day. That would be a fun episode. I think it would also be really neat if they somehow reference Aisle 4. I'm totally not biased in that I just really want to see Chef Saltbaker, but I think it would be really cool to have them, maybe they mention the Moonshine Mob or something. That would be fun. So, in conclusion, the Cuphead Show is an amazing series that deserves a renewal. And while I do have my complaints about the writing and a few episodes, it's still a wonderful series and everything I could have asked for from a Cuphead show. If you haven't watched it for whatever reason, I highly recommend it. Even if you just skip around to a couple episodes that are really good. It's just a fun, goofy series, and it's amazing. I highly recommend it. I have nothing but respect for Studio MDHR and all the people on the writing and art team. Everyone that worked on this was just so amazing, and I love the product that they delivered.